You're listening to the PR Wind Down Podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April White and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down.
Happy Halloween from the PR Wind Down team.
You're in for a treat because we're sharing the tricks of the trade in a special way this week with our annual Halloween special.
Pour yourself a brew and get ready for the scariest stories in media and PR this month. And we're revisiting ghoulish tales from our listeners. And we're ready for some frightfully good fun. Let's get to it.
All right.
So we have some crazy news stories. The first one we've got is why Netflix's Jeffrey Dahmer series is receiving so much backlash. People are calling the dramatization re-traumatizing for the victims' families. Then they have a disclaimer that this article contains discussion of murder and sexual assault that some may find upsetting. This is an article in Cosmo. So since Ryan Murphy's new series Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, dropped on Netflix last week, many viewers have taken to social media to criticize the show. They argue it humanizes the true crimes of the notorious serial killer, with victims' families also speaking out about feeling re-traumatized.
I can imagine. I mean, imagine if that had been one of your family members and whatever decades later they're doing yet another thing about it. It is also a part of long PR troubles for Netflix.
Yeah.
Because they seems to facing different crises all the time.
Yeah, they just can't stop with the PR crises around the shows that they're putting out.
So, right. So I guess it was like Dave Chappelle, right? That was one of their issues that they put out, and there's a lot of backlash against that. Now there's backlash against this. So I guess it's sort of a crisis communications. It's also a decision that they make, right? They make a decision. Are we going to put this content out that we know is going to upset certain segments? Would you say the Chappelle comedy special is the same as the Jeffrey Dahmer?
No. The Dave Chappelle thing is sensitive because of the current socio-political climate. And
to remind people, the trans community is not happy with him for the things that he says about them, making jokes about the community. I guess they don't like him speaking for them. They don't like what he had to say. They didn't think it was funny, that it was more he was using it in a hurtful way. I've said this before. I heard it. I didn't find it to be that way, but I'm also not a part of the trans community. So what do I know?
Yeah, fair.
That's why I'm trying to compare it to the Jeffrey Dahmer thing, which I don't know if anybody could argue that if you were related to one of the people who were, raped, murdered, beheaded, dismembered, etc. There's
eaten.
Yeah, right. Eaten. There's no way to defend that, really. I mean, it's a great horror movie. The problem is it actually happened.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. It's legitimately upsetting. Why people are entertained by that, why you would allow them to be, why you would profit from that, I don't. There's no universe in which I understand that. So that's why, to me, it feels very different. I mean, I feel like Dave Chappelle has had some good points he was trying to communicate, and whether or not you agree with the communication, that's one thing, but it wasn't intentionally horrific for the sake of it. He was saying hard truths to him that he believed were true in the context of humor. So that's, I just feel like they're totally different universes.
So what if you were doing PR for Netflix? How would you tell them to handle the backlash around the Jeffrey Dahmer thing?
You have to have a darn good reason why you chose to put that out. So I'd have to find out what the reasons were. And if there weren't good reasons, you have to find them fast or apologize. I don't think, maybe a combination of both, right? Well, we thought that this is such a historic, God, I can't believe I'm saying this because I don't want to defend it. But if I had to, we thought this was a historical event that has a significant role in its place in history in terms of, culture and society. And there are still a lot of people that have been interested in exploring the psychology behind Jeffrey Dahmer. And we felt like this was a very, contemporary exploration of issues that we're all concerned about, including narcissism and sociopathy and, some version of that. But that said, we are deeply regret that the portrayal has triggered families and made them feel re-traumatized. And as a result, we are doing X, whatever that is, pulling the show, putting more disclaimers at the front of it. I noticed that Netflix did that recently with Stranger Things season 4. This first scene is not meant to trigger people from this. This was filmed before the shooting in Texas, etc. So, whatever the therefore we're doing this, that should be included at the end. But I kind of want to vomit that I even helped frame that. But I think that's the only crisis response that can be valid at this point, right?
I didn't watch it, so
there's no way I would ever watch that.
So I can't really say what I think about it without watching it. It's sort of like commenting on the Dave Chappelle thing without having watched it. You just don't know. You can sort of make a claim based on what you think that you would feel.
Well, I can't possibly know what I would feel because I wasn't a family member of somebody that was eaten by Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right, I know, but I just mean I don't know what my reaction. My reaction could be 100 times worse if I watched it. You know what I mean? It could be even worse than I'm thinking it is now. All I know is that if I was a family or friend or whatever, it would just be horrible. And so few people on earth can even possibly know what that would feel like, right?
I hope they wouldn't re-watch it. I don't know why you'd put yourself through that.
Yeah, I know. I guess they're saying in this article that nobody tells them that these things are happening. They find out when the rest of the world does because they're not getting notified. They're not getting paid for this stuff. They just find out about it because all of a sudden they start getting social media messages or whatever. And then they're like, oh, another Jeffrey Dahmer show's coming out.
And I mean, maybe Netflix didn't care because, there's huge money in true crime, which has exploded over the last few years. There's an article in The Ringer about, all of the incredible profits made on all these different terrifying things. So there was Tiger King and Unsolved Mysteries and Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich and Night Stalker, American Murder, The Family Next Door. I mean, it just seems
Netflix has a lot of them too.
Even the new Stranger Things season is pretty gory. I'm literally doing this at times. I'm hide parts of the screen.
No, it's definitely.
I don't have to see it.
It's a full frontal assault, that show.
It's terrifying.
I think that people are interested in it as a human curiosity, but I also wonder. I don't feel like horror movies are that interesting or scary anymore.
Because real life is scarier than fiction.
Except I will have to say, do you know about Faces of Death? It was a movie that was probably from the 80s. It was rated X, and it was actual videos. This is before, social media. So not everybody in the world had a video camera in their hand. Mm-hmm. It was videos of people dying in all different ways. And it was compiled into a movie, and it was put out in the 80s. And it was rated X because it was so horribly violent. And people were literally, it was basically a snuff film. So this stuff has been going on, just not to the extent that it does now, and not making the money that it does now, et cetera. And all of it is because of, technology and media platforms, et cetera, that have allowed this to happen. So I don't know if the bottom line is that back in the old days when I was a kid and they'd be like, music and the media is ruining the world. And I'd be like, oh God. And, Frank Zappa and Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, they were like, that's ridiculous. But maybe it's not ridiculous. I mean, between video games and movies and all of this stuff, it's got to be influencing in some way the horrible things that people do. It at least is creating an environment in which this stuff is somehow normalized, right?
Yeah. Not even just normalized, but glamorized. It's narcissists who want to make a name for themselves long have said this, right? I mean, anything you watch about people of this type who end up doing these crazy things is because they usually want attention.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're setting up people who also want attention to go, oh, okay, if I want attention, I have to do this. Problem solved. I'm famous, right? Ooh, spooky skull. That's exactly how I feel about that. Is that a candle? What is this? What are you
Yes.
showing us?
It's
a
a
candle and
skull
a
with
skull.
the skeleton hand and the spider web on its head.
What's happening to this skull? He's like being choked by himself?
He's covering his mouth. I guess speak no evil. Wah,
Oh.
wah, wah, wah.
I feel like I'm like signing a deal with the devil.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's wrapped up because I'm giving it to somebody.
I see.
That's a present. That's the kind of friend that I am.
So funny.
All right. Well, I guess sometimes kids, there's not an easy wrap up sort of answer with a revelation.
I mean,
with
I
cherry
have
on
a
top.
crisis answer for them, but I sort of hate myself for it. So.
Yeah. It's not an easy one.
So, Laura, do you want to jump into things I should have been trained on?
Okay.
So, for Halloween, things I should have been trained on is how to overcome the things that scare you to excel in your PR career. So maybe public speaking, maybe mean reporters, maybe intimidating bosses, maybe managing people, maybe managing up.
Right. So the things that hardly any of us were really trained on.
Yeah. So do you have any scary career moments and lessons you learned from them?
Well, I will say this. This is my interview question. What's something, what are you good at? You answer that question. And then the question, well, what aren't you so good at? Well, I just care too much or whatever, silly answer that you give so that you don't actually look bad, but then you give a dumb answer. So you look bad anyway. But I have a good answer and it's true. I was not a good public speaker. I've done stand-up comedy. It was horrific for me. It's so terrible. And my father can't get enough public speaking. And so I was supposed to just by nature be a really good public speaker who wanted to go out and do it. And I did want to do it, but I just wasn't naturally good at it. I don't know that I am naturally good at it necessarily now. However, what I did, so I wasn't trained on this, but I made my way through it on my own by using media training that I've been part of in training executives and spokespeople hundreds of times in my career. So seeing how that works, usually it would be with a professional media trainer, but I would be involved and in the room.
Yeah.
So understanding how that works, and it's not really public speaking, but it's close. And then my friend, after a couple of years, finally convinced me to take this stand-up comedy class and to take the improv class. And so I did that too. And then I had an opportunity to perform, which was very scary, but I did it. And also be on radio live and also live TV. The radio stuff and like podcasts, it's easier because you're sitting at a desk, it's a little looser. But being on like actual live TV, horrible. But prepare, figure out how you're going to do it. I know my subject matter. It was always about baseball. I was much better. So I wasn't trained on it, but I made myself find my way through it by using things that I just had in my job and also like pushing myself to do something that was of interest to me, but very scary. And I had to even spend my own money, which, as if anybody knows me, I'm not likely to do. And
Laura's cheap.
I am frugal and I don't like to be cheap. I don't like to waste anything. So anyhow, how to overcome, use the things that are just in your life and in your job, and then push yourself to do some things proactively.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great advice. I know other people who had public speaking issues and took Toastmasters and then got really excited about it and suddenly became actually like pretty happy. Yeah. And I took a storytelling class, actually a series of storytelling classes, because I was starting to feel like I wasn't as confident with my verbal communication as I was with my written. And since I did that, I actually feel like I'm as proficient in both, which shocks me. Because I used to write everything because I didn't trust myself to speak what I was thinking in a way that would communicate clearly. So
what about other things that would help people excel in their PR career? So things that scare people, like mean reporters, intimidating bosses. And what about other things like dealing with clients or writing? So how do you overcome anything that scares you, I guess you just got to do it. I'll go back to what I said. Be serious about doing it at your job, and then also take another proactive step outside of what's given to you at your job to become a better writer, to deal with intimidating people. I don't know. That could be your client or your boss or whatever, but go outside of work to do.
And nowadays, like everyone in their thought leadership goals, I mean, everyone has a podcast, everyone is writing books. I mean, the amount of free information you can find about just about anything online because of so many audiobooks, there's podcasts you can listen to, because there's podcasts you can listen to get the idea of what book you want to listen to or read or whatever, however you choose to consume books now. It's just a matter of just doing a little Google and YouTube research to start down whatever you want to learn. The other thing to keep in mind is that your education shouldn't really end at school. So if there are things that you personally want to get better at, I think improving yourself as a professional, as a human, should be a lifelong journey, right? There should never be a moment where it's like, okay, I know everything I need to know. There's a girl on our team who, God bless her, takes this really seriously. So she'll say, what is this affiliate marketing thing people are talking about? And then she goes and studies it and she learns about it. And then she goes, what is share a sale? And then she studies. It's like, and it just leads her down to new tributaries. I think that that's the way that you become the best version of yourself you can be as a professional and as a person. So if, I'm attracting narcissists into my world. Okay, let me go study that, right? Like whatever it is, you need to go find the podcast, find the audiobook, whatever, and listen to it and just make yourself knowledgeable about whatever interests you or whatever you feel like, you're scared of. So yeah, nobody ever really trained me on that, but I definitely figured out over time that because nobody was training me on stuff, I had to go train myself.
Yeah.
I think
all right.
I think that we might have done it.
Is Hamish around? Hi, Hamish.
Hello, Laura.
We've brought Hamish Anderson back to read some of our PR horror stories of old.
We have. And as a formal introduction for those who haven't met Hamish yet, he is the EVP and Marketing Group Director here at Trust Relations. He's also the co-host with me of Trust Relations, the podcast. So if you can't get enough of me and or Hamish after this, pop on over to Trust Relations, the podcast, where we discuss integrated marketing, campaigns and fails and best techniques and that kind of stuff. And now that we have Hamish here, here's my other Halloween candle. It's black, it's on fire, and it's not as scary, but it's
pumpkin spice.
The old pumpkin spice with a little cat and a witch and an owl and a pumpkin.
I like it.
It'd
be good if it had two little eyes on it that could see through.
But then the wax would pour out.
Yeah, that would be good. It'd be like it was crying.
Oh, it should be red. It would be crying blood.
Yes. Now we're on the same page.
Okay.
So today, as Laura said, he is here to react to and read some of our scariest PR horror stories from the year so far. So welcome, Hamish.
Thank you for having me, April.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Do we get to hear the creepy laugh that we get to hear on Trust Relations, the podcast?
Good to be here.
So pleased. Yeah, he does that. There's also some weird like monster voice you do sometimes.
I'll save that for later. I don't want to do it. I don't want to blow all of my gunpowder at once.
Okay, fair enough. So, Hamish, you have in your inbox 3 of the scariest PR horror stories of the year.
Okay, just find the first one. Whoa, baby. Let me take you on a journey. A nightmare, a haunting reality, that is. In fact, my life this week. I'm working with a new client in the food and bev space. And as we were ramping up our PR campaign, the client contact, a marketing manager, sends us an old article the founder had drafted for a major trade publication, where he is the new regular contributor. We are supposed to edit the debut article. Easy enough. The draft was sitting at 3,000 words, but the max word count for this publication was 1,500. Okay. So we reviewed the article, cut it down to 1,500 and sent it back to the client for approval. Silence. Multiple follow-ups. More silence. Finally, the founder takes a look at our revisions. He is not pleased that we cut so much out of the content. So he adds a couple of sections back in. Now we're back up to 1,900 words. That's good. We scale it back to some more, but we weren't comfortable making any major omissions. It didn't go so great last time. We even offered to place the article elsewhere, but no bueno. We then asked the client if we can hop on a call with the founder who wrote the article to chat through some of the ways to shorten the piece. We heard nothing for 3 days. Very responsive, this guy. Then on the third day, my inbox lights up. The founder has sent us a Xeroxed copy of the article, manually printed out and marked up in red pen, a la 1995. He has handwritten multiple new sections, including one very personal story, and made some revisions that were totally illegible due to the quality of the copies. The worst part? The enormous food stains all over the pages. Barf. Maybe he was trying to send us a free sample. This is great. Tomorrow I'll have to address these revisions with the client contact in our weekly Monday Zoom sesh. What would you do if you were me? Because I still have not figured this one out. Wow. This guy is delightful. I'd like to know over how long this went. I mean, wow.
How would you respond to that, Hamish, if you had a byline you were doing for a client or
dear client, please find someone else. No, that's a really good question. Well, look, you'd hope that this agency had set some parameters in place and that says you get 2 revisions out of us and then it costs you each time.
Yeah.
And then I would be going back to some of the agreed strategic messaging. This is what we're going to hone in on. This is what is important. And these personal stories that keep taking us over our maximum word count need to go. They're just going to be cut anyway. And it's better that we control what goes out there than it gets sub-edited at the publication. They cut out what you don't want them to, and you lose all impact with the release anyway. This client sounds like they need to be taken to PR school. God. What did you guys recommend when you got this one? I mean, there's so many conflicting thoughts.
Laura, do you remember the advice we gave?
I feel like the senior most person on the account has to come in and sort of lower the boom and say, look, this literally will not be published. You will not achieve your goal if it's not cut back by another, 500 words. So in keeping with the most recent, past 4 to 6 months of articles that this publication has published, they don't include, let's say, personal stories. So that's the part that we really need to cut, because that's the best way to get the result that we want. Don't you want to be published? Well, yes, I want to be published. This is the way that it will happen. If we go over words, it won't be published. If we include a personal story, they might cut it anyway. I mean, that's kind of it.
Yeah, agreed. I think, look, I'm still getting over your client voice. I thought that was an excellent client voice.
You and Hamish with the voices, man. We should have a voice off.
Okay, all right.
So he sounds like Kermit.
It did. That's what grabbed my attention. I enjoyed that. I'm going to think of clients as Kermit and Muppets from now on. Not that I think of any client as a Muppet.
We only work with Muppets.
All right. So why don't we move to scary story number 2? The Boss of Wrath.
Yes, I like the title of this one. Oh, this will be a good one. I'm coming to you confounded to ask, are we not supposed to answer emails anymore? Is that dead? Are people just opening emails for fun? Let me tell you why I ask. I have this boss, bigwig at this PR firm I'm working for, and he is a weekend email fanatic. Every weekend, usually on Sunday afternoon, he'll hit all of our inboxes with a lot of emails. I'm talking like 20 plus emails. They're usually from a combination of new assignments, late responses to our emails from the work week, or forwarded conversations to look into. Anyway, responding to 20 urgent emails every Monday morning tends to bog me down at the start of the work week. So this weekend, I took pity on Monday me and decided to read through his emails last night, Sunday night. I read his emails, formulated replies, and scheduled my responses to go out the following morning when our office opens. I didn't want to reply right away and set the expectation that I'll be working every Sunday. This boss is a give an inch, he takes a mile type of guy. So I'm trying to hold some boundaries here. Anyway, I came in this morning. You know, when everyone at the agency starts the work week, and about 30 minutes into the workday, he calls me for a culture chat. Oh, good. For a good 10 minutes, he totally freaked out on me and shamed me for jamming up his inbox on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. I tried to explain that I wanted to address his urgent request promptly, but he wasn't having it. I was not acting like a team player for not anticipating that my replies would be inconvenient first thing on Monday. Eventually, I just said I'd be sure not to reply so promptly again. I chose the path of least resistance and agreed that I was the jerk. Wow. But I'm not the jerk, right? Right? The perpetrator of thorough email replies is the sign-off. That's it. Sign-off too. Oh,
so
my
what do you
God.
think about that one?
You know what? I have a little bit of PTSD with this one. So I felt the chills. I had a boss like this who used to just go on email tirades, and you would just sit there, and as soon as you got the first one, after hours or on a weekend, you knew that you were about to get a barrage of them. And I feel for this person. Literally, my blood went cold. These people are narcissists. Everything is their way. Nothing can go the way that is not
100%.
scripted by their book. And it doesn't matter what this person does. I think that they've taken the path of least resistance. It was a smart career move. The next smart career move will be to move on from that agency. Eventually, that's a very toxic culture. It's going to lead to poor work ethic. It's going to lead to people not doing the best work that they can, and the PR agency is going to probably just sink anyway. So get out whilst the ship is still close to land.
Well, that's very prophetic.
As I said, at PTSD, I also saw what happens to a toxic work environment. And I think there's nothing you can do with that one. You've got to look after yourself at the end of the day. They did by responding thoroughly. The only other thing that they could do was schedule them to go out at longer intervals.
Right, exactly.
That was my advice last time, was to stagger it more and actually, make sure that it was scheduled so it's like
every 37 minutes. Yeah.
That's right.
I just love the fact that the boss can send 20 emails on a Sunday, ruining everybody's afternoon. But when you reply during work hours, you're the one who is being...
You're the cretin.
Right, exactly.
It's horrible.
You're jamming the email. I love that. You're jamming wait, what were you doing to my inbox yesterday?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, yeah. All right,
let's have a culture chat.
Yeah.
Culture chat.
Yeah.
Oh man, if I saw that email come in, I want to hide under my desk.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But you know what? It's so, and when you're young, it's so hard. I mean, it's hard to deal with that stuff no matter what age you are. But when you're young and you just are like, oh my God, I can't lose my job or whatever, you're way more in fear of this stuff. Then hopefully when you get older and you realize that some people are just, like you said, narcissists and not able to function, it's even semi-normally in society, that it's not you, it's them, and you can keep it moving, as I often say when we get these kinds of stories.
Slight segue, but with this thing I was telling you about, I got a heap of emails on the Sunday afternoon from this boss of mine, and I didn't reply. And on Monday morning at 9:30, he called me into his office. I'd been there for an hour, and he said, "Why didn't you respond to my emails yesterday? What happened?" I mean, I was just, and I said, "I'm sorry. Yesterday I found out my dad had cancer, so I was actually dealing with that." He goes, "Oh, well, you never told me." I was like, "Why would I? What benefit was that in me getting on email to say, I'm not answering these today, I'm dealing with something?" I just didn't answer. And that was the only time I ever shut him down. And I did watch him squirm for about 4 seconds before he then regained his composure and sent me on my way. But those type of people you will never, ever reason with. Ever.
No, because they don't care.
They do not care. No.
They don't have
I
the
love this. Like,
capacity.
why wouldn't you tell me your dad had cancer?
Right.
He was. He was very much like that. Well, I didn't know that. Well, you never told me that. Yeah, I found out yesterday, and you were not on my list of dear people I need to tell.
Right. Oh my God.
It's not funny, but it's funny.
It was not funny. I mean, it's a good story now.
It is a good story now. I'm sorry that happened to you, though.
No, thank you. Thank you. Me too.
Brutal.
All right. Do you want me to move on to the last one?
Let's
which
yeah,
has got
let's
a
hear
great,
it.
The flashing.
Ooh.
Flashing. The flashing.
Like flashing.
I don't know. I haven't read ahead.
Oh boy.
Sounds salacious.
Oh boy.
I like it.
All right.
All right. Hi there, April and Laura. No boy. So this story happened to me maybe a few years or so ago, but a friend reminded me about it last weekend. How did I ever forget? I wasn't listening to the wind down when I had this experience, but it is so perfect for you. Okay. So I was working with an agency for this client who had an awesome company that did all this amazing research and awareness activism for a rare genetic disease. The client CEO had lost his dad to the disease and he was super passionate. And I was really proud to be doing this project for this client. So this was pre-COVID days and the client wanted to meet our team after the end of a really successful quarter. The agency was cutting him a deal, sort of as a charity initiative to help brands with powerful mission and not a lot of funds. The client CEO took me and the rest of our account team down to the local baseball stadium for a game. It was fun until I got up to get a drink and tripped over my dress on the stairs. It was a long maxi-length summer dress with spaghetti straps. I stepped down hard on the front of it. The whole of the dress pulled down for a few seconds as I tumbled to pull it back up. Several rows of nearby people saw my sheer strapless bra. I don't think any nip slipped, but who knows? It happened so fast. Anyway, me and my female colleagues laughed it off. I thought it was over. Fast forward to the end of the game. The client was a few beers in. My agency boss shows up late. He'd been at another client meeting, but wanted to stop by and make an appearance towards the end. The client starts telling my boss about my accidental flashing, asks if I charge extra for a live show, and then proceeds to suggest that my boss should hold a charity event for his brand to auction me and my quote unquote sweet rack off for a charity. It was obviously meant as a joke, and both my boss and the client were in stitches, but I was mortified. I had a bad taste in my mouth for the client and my boss after that, even if the work the client did for disease research was good. I hated him more every day after that and eventually asked to be removed from the account. Did I overreact? Well, there's a lot in this one, isn't there? Is this where I defer to you two to answer this question?
No, April specifically wanted you to read this one to get your response.
Yeah, wow.
I set you up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a man's response because before it was the two of us.
Right.
And it's like it's slightly more interesting to see what a man would say to that.
Look, let's start at the top, as I think, and spin the wheels in the background. I think she was very excited to be on this account. Obviously, had done some great work for the client, and they got on really well. I find it interesting that she's put in here that it was a sheer strapless bra. I felt that detail is probably one that was not lost on the client. And I
definitely
think
not.
Look, I'm guessing if this was a few years ago and pre-COVID, this was in the Me Too era, and this was completely, as a result, whether or not it was the Me Too era or not, but definitely as a result, it's completely tone deaf by the client and the boss. It's just absolutely cringe-worthy. Whether they say it or not, saying it in front of her and colleagues is just unprofessional to the nth degree. It sets the wrong tone, not only for this poor lady who had the incident happen, but for all the colleagues around her, and makes something which was potentially innocuous and would have gone away, something that stayed around in the agency for months to come. People talk about it, becomes the water cooler story. So they definitely turned this into something that it didn't need to be. Were they malicious? No, probably not. Were they stupid and short-sighted? Yeah, I'd say so, very much. That, or they hid the fact that they were a misogynistic boys' club for longer than she could discern. So, did she overreact and ask him to be pulled off? I don't know. It would really depend on what happened afterwards. Did they change the work environment for her? Did they keep referencing it? If they didn't, maybe she overreacted in defense. If they did, no, absolutely not. I think that they. Can you get it back on the line? I'd like to ask her a few questions.
I remember what I ultimately got to on this one when we talked about it, and hearing it again, I still think it might at least partially apply, that she was so into this client and what they were doing and had so much respect for this work and for the guy. And then when he did this, I think it hurt her feelings because she realized that he didn't really take her very seriously, or she felt that he didn't take her very seriously. And her like whole world kind of came crashing down, separate from him, you know, being misogynistic, perhaps. It really hurt her feelings that he didn't respect her anymore, is what I think really at the bottom of all this might be.
Yeah, look, if he'd apologized, it probably by the sounds of it would have gone a long way.
Right.
And I'm guessing he never did. And look, it would leave a question in the back of her mind as to whether she was on the account after that because she had a sweet rack, or if she was very good at her job.
Isn't it the kind of thing where she could just say to him, hey, maybe I just want to let you know, maybe really uncomfortable when you guys were joking about my rack, and I want to keep working with you. I really love this account, but you know, I just want to let you know it really did make me pretty uncomfortable, and I'm hoping we can, moving forward, will not have any exchanges like that.
The
like,
problem
could you
is,
say that?
You would, but the problem is a lot of people don't have boundaries or don't know how to flex them when they need to, and she may have felt she was stepping on toes. It was her personal space or her personal being that was affronted, but maybe she didn't have the strength to stand up in that sense, and thinking that it would jeopardize her job or anything else. So,
or like re-humiliate herself, even having to like speak about it. But yes, April, I think that could be that would be an option. It would be a difficult one to pursue, but it's definitely
very difficult, but at least you leave open the chance to work on the account and resolve things, right?
You know what?
Like, because that's how guys would handle it too, right? Like, hey, dude, that wasn't cool. It wasn't cool how you like. So my question for Hamish is, if this were gender flopped and like you were a guy and you were a young account exec, and somehow your pants came down or whatever, and like people saw your budgie smuggler. Sorry, that's an inside joke from a podcast. Budgie smuggler, for anyone who doesn't know, budgie is a bird in an Australian slang, and smuggler means that you are hiding a bird in your Speedo.
Like a banana hammock.
Yes.
So, like, how would you feel in reverse as a guy, and then how would you handle it? Because I'm just curious, like, you know, flipping it.
I think that the thing here is, if that's not something you've done intentionally and you feel humiliated, there's two things you can do. You can address it by saying, guys, afterwards that happened, but I'd appreciate if we never talk about it again. Or, and maybe it's a guy thing, I don't know, you lean into it and you make fun of yourself at the same time, so that the oxygen's taken out of the room and everyone sees that it's not going to get any purchase. So yes, I did. You know, if you're lucky, I'll do a show later for $5, but you'll have to pay this time. Whatever. And then that way, you've suffocated the conversation to some extent. And sure, it might come up, but it's not going to have the same impact that it would otherwise.
I agree with you to try to take it as your own. It's just it's not the same for a man as it is for a woman.
It's not. I understand that. And that's why I said I think maybe it's a guy thing. And look, the only thing I would potentially offer up here is maybe exert your boundaries and just say, look, this makes me uncomfortable. I appreciate that it was funny at the time, but ongoing, I'm not comfortable with this, and I'd like to maintain a professional working relationship with you. So, you know, cut that out.
I think that for correcting culture in society, I think the best way to handle it is actually the more overt and direct way.
Yeah, agreed.
It shows self-confidence, and you know that you're willing to stand up.
And if you get a horrific response, then you know that this person is definitely not worth working with or for.
But that's the thing as well. You're protecting yourself. You're standing up for yourself, and you're saying to people, "This is my line in the sand." You stop it happening again as well.
Yep.
It's a moment of awkwardness in the moment for the saving of potentially more down the track.
Yep. Drawing of boundaries is very useful. It's hard to do, but you got to do it.
Yes, it's a muscle that I'm starting to flex more.
Yeah.
I was not very good at it, but it's something that we all need to learn, I think.
We all can stand to get better at it, except for Lana Dow.
Oh, she's already good at it.
Yes, she's very
but
good
she
at
had
it.
to work at it. She did. She didn't used to be good at it.
All right, that's good to know. So she wasn't born with it.
So there's
All
hope
right.
for all of us.
Yes.
Lana Dow, for anybody not in on the joke, is our chief client officer at Just Relations. She's just famous for being able to handle difficult conversations very impersonally. So
with aplomb.
With aplomb and with kindness. It's shocking. Anyway, if you want to hear more from Lana, we do have an episode 29, which is called Operations Overhaul.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Oh, just as I hoped. Right on cue.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. This is your show producer, Veronica, chiming in with a quick note from production. As we move forward next month with Season 3, we'll be adopting an updated cadence for the show. You can catch the PR Wind Down starting in November 2022 on the third Friday of every month. Happy Halloween and happy listening.
All right. Thank you for tuning in for the PR Wind Down podcast. It's been a scream.
It has. And thank you to our anonymous listeners for sharing their stories every week, and to Hamish for taking a break from Trust Relations, the podcast, to join us on the Wind Down.
Please remember to like, rate, and share our podcast with the guys and ghouls in your life. And we'd love to hear from you at the email address on our show notes below if you're feeling inspired to share a PR horror story of your own after hearing all of these.
And as always, we can't wait to wind down with you again next time.
Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum. What is Laura showing us in this moment?
A voodoo doll.
Oh, my Lord.
It's an evil wallet baby.
Evil wallets, baby?
Yes, wallet baby.
Wallet like your wallet?
Yeah, like
money?
you put babies in a wallet, yes.
And then you put him in your wallet?
I have this baby's baby in my wallet.
I don't even understand how to unpack that.
It's unique.
Yeah.
It's an evil baby. It's our Halloween episode.
I think if you don't want to be hit on at the bar by guys, that's definitely what you should carry.
Hey, look what I've got.
Oh, I know.
Like
how to
set
hit
him on your
guys.
shoulder.
You could, if you had one on either side, though. Then what did you say? Oh, I should then, should I?
That would definitely scare them off.
Yeah. Maybe you'll attract a couple too. There's a couple of crazy guys out there.
That's what I was gonna say. This it could work.